Picture this: a vast desert landscape, dotted with oases and bustling trade routes. Caravans of camels, laden with exotic goods, their bells tinkling in the dry air. Tribal encampments where poets recite verses under starry skies, and ancient idols stand silent in the shadows of sacred shrines. Welcome to Arabia before Islam, a time known as the Age of Jahiliyyah. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly was this Jahiliyyah? Well, let me tell you a story that stretches back over 1400 years. Jahiliyyah, often translated as the Age of Ignorance, was the name given to the period in Arabia before the coming of Islam. It has a term that paints a picture of a world very different from the one that would emerge after the Prophet Muhammad received his first revelation in 610 CE. But here's the thing. This Age of Ignorance was not as simple as its name might suggest. It's like looking at an old photograph and trying to understand a whole world from just one snapshot. You see, the term Jahiliyyah itself is a bit of a puzzle. It's a word that carries a lot of weight, shaped by the lens of later Islamic tradition. It's as if the storytellers of the past were saying, "Let us tell you about the time before the light of Islam, when people wandered in darkness." Now, imagine you're a time traveler, stepping into the sands of pre-Islamic Arabia. What would you see? First off, you'd notice that this wasn't a unified kingdom or empire. Instead, it was a patchwork of tribes, each fiercely proud and independent. Loyalty to your tribe wasn't just important. It was everything. It was your identity, your safety net, and often the difference between life and death in the harsh desert environment. These tribes lived by a code of honor called asab. It's a bit like the all for one and one for all of the Three Musketeers, but with a lot more sand and camels. If someone wronged a member of your tribe, it wasn't just their problem. It became everyone's problem. Vengeance and protection of honor were serious business, often leading to long-standing feuds between tribes that could last for generations. But life wasn't all about conflict. The Arabs of Jahiliyyah had a rich cultural life, especially when it came to poetry. Imagine a world where poets were like the rock stars of today. Their words could inspire, provoke, and even change the course of tribal politics. The most famous poems were hung on the walls of the Kaaba in Mecca, a bit like an ancient version of the Billboard charts. Speaking of the Kaaba, let's talk about religion in Jahiliyyah. If you visited Mecca back then, you'd find it looked very different from today. The Kaaba, that cubic building at the heart of Islam's holiest site, was surrounded by hundreds of idols, some say as many as 360. Each tribe had its own gods and goddesses, and pilgrimage to Mecca was already a tradition, though for very different reasons than it is today. But it wasn't all polytheism. Scattered here and there, you'd find people called the Hanifs. These were folks who believed in one God, but they weren't Jews or Christians. They were like the spiritual seekers of their time, searching for a deeper truth beyond the idols and tribal deities. In a way, they set the stage for the monotheism that would come with Islam. Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, if this was the Age of Ignorance, how come they had all this poetry and complex social structures? And that's a great question. You see, the term Jahiliyyah is a bit tricky. It's not so much about literal ignorance or lack of knowledge. It's more about how later Islamic scholars viewed this time, in contrast to the teachings and values that Islam would bring. Modern scholars have started to look at Jahiliyyah with fresh eyes. They're saying, hold on, maybe this picture is more complicated than we thought. It's like when you find an old family photo and realize there's a whole story behind it that you never knew. These researchers are digging deeper, trying to understand pre-Islamic Arabia on its own terms, not just as a prelude to Islam. So, what else would you see in this world of Jahiliyyah? Well, you'd find a society where oral tradition was king. Stories, genealogies, and important information were passed down by word of mouth. Memory was a prized skill. Imagine being able to recite thousands of lines of poetry by heart. Trade was the lifeblood of many communities. Cities like Mecca weren't just religious centers. They were bustling marketplaces where goods from as far as India and Africa changed hands. The Quraysh, the tribe of the Prophet Muhammad, were especially known for their trading skills. But life could be harsh, especially for the vulnerable. Women, in particular, often had a tough time. While some women held positions of respect and influence, many faced practices like female infanticide and had limited rights in marriage and inheritance. It was a world where strength and tribal connections often determined one's fate. As we wrap up our journey through the Age of Jahiliyyah, it's important to remember that this was a complex, vibrant world. It wasn't simply waiting for Islam to arrive. It was a living, breathing society with its own values, traditions, and challenges. The poetry, the tribal loyalty, the search for meaning. All of these would play a role in shaping the Islamic civilization that was to come. So, the next time you hear about Jahiliyyah, remember that it's not just a simple tale of ignorance versus enlightenment. It's a story of a rich, complicated world that set the stage for one of history's great transformations. It's a reminder that every new chapter in history builds on what came before, weaving together the old and the new into the tapestry of human experience. And there you have it, a glimpse into Arabia before Islam. A world of poetry and idols, tribal honor and ancient pilgrimages. A world that, in many ways, laid the foundation for the Islamic civilization that would soon emerge and change the course of history. The age of Jahiliyyah, a time of complexity, contradiction, and the seeds of profound change.